stream. Oh, damn it, Jeffrey. You got me. He's so fast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode from Public Access America. My name is Jason. His name is Jeffrey. His computer was stuck. My computer was updating a whole bunch of stuff, and we managed to be here for the live stream basically on time.
It's always funny how it's like, I had this thing on yesterday because my laptop battery was dying.
Mm,
This thing is like 8 years old. I've done a bunch of upgrades to it. It's still highly functional, but there definitely is, it's showing its age. And I just don't have the money or really the need to upgrade my computer at this point. So it's kind of
totally.
one of those things where it's like, well, we're just gonna ride it out as long as we can, and everything will be just fine.
Sure.
So, you know, sometimes it's cheaper to just do the upgrades and
Hmm.
buy yourself some time until you can save up and buy a new one outright.
Or just wait for the deal. I always
Hmm.
assume I have a whole list of things that I would like to have, but I just wait for the deal. And then I
Yep.
go, oh, okay, that's what I wanted. And people are like, you always spend money. And I'm like, well, I always spend money on what I wanted. You know what I mean? But I put
Right.
a year of thought into it before I bought it, because I don't want to buy a whole bunch of random stuff. So,
Right. And when I bought this computer, like people were like, "Oh my gosh, you're spending, $950 on a laptop." I said, "Well, number one, it's not an Apple, so it's
mm.
literally half the cost." He said, number two, probably will get a good 5 years out of it. So I bought this thing at the end of 2013. And here it is, middle of 2021, and it's still running pretty decently. I had to double the RAM. I ended up changing out the hard drive for an SSD.
Mm.
I have a second hard drive in here that I'm probably going to look at putting it, getting another SSD, and then that way I'd have uh, two solid state drives in this thing. But really, realistically, it's like, well, do I need to do that? Because most likely the next computer I buy is going to have an SSD in it already. And then I can take the SSD that's in this one, nuke it, and do
Mm.
whatever I want.
That's awesome.
So I
You
was
just
like,
spoke
well,
a bunch of Greek to me, and I love it.
oh, I am a computer nerd at heart, and
Right?
I've spent a lot of time working on machines in various capacities.
Hmm.
Everything from like have you tried turning it on and turning it off and turning it back on again, to okay, well, it sounds like your hard drive's failing or your motherboard's going bad or blah 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 blah. And so it's just, I've gotten used to working with computers in
Hmm.
various realms, and uh whether it's been fighting uh viruses or ransomware or malware attacks or any number of things. I've done some server side work. you know
Nice.
it's kind of what kickstarted my love for all things tech, and uh you know moving into the infosec world.
Mm. You know what
So
I blame for that is the carburetor. I
the
think
carburetor.
when cars left the carburetor behind, guys were just like, computers are better to work on. You know what I mean?
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong. I love working on old cars because they are simple. Like,
Hmm.
and on top of that, the parts are cheap. I can literally like go to any freaking parts store and I'll be like, "Hey, I need to get a new distributor cap for this, or I need to get a new carb for this, or I need to get, a piston ring set," and I could do that with an
Mm.
old vehicle. And and literally sit in the engine bay and work on stuff. Whereas with newer vehicles,
Right.
it's like there are very few things that they actually make accessible, and the rest of it, it's like you have to take it to a shop. There's just no way.
Right.
So it's frustrating because
Love it.
I liked being able, living on the farm. I like being able to pull a vehicle into the shop and work on it.
Mhm.
So,
Me too. I mean, I used to work. I had my first car was a '71 Cutlass
mm,
Supreme, you know, and
yep.
so I loved it. It had a 350R in it, which was the most common motor ever, and you could put anything in it. You know what I mean? I had
Oh,
Camaros,
yeah.
Firebirds, I had 305s, I had 30. There was a discussion with one at a campfire over my car. They were like, "You got a like a Firebird engine in your Camaro? Well, how did you do that?" And I was like, "I didn't do any of it, you know." But
Right.
I loved working on that stuff.
And that's it's a missing simplicity.
Mm,
Because one of the things that I've thought about in all of this, as we move towards, electric vehicles and whatnot, there's still going to be that need for some of that raw power in the interim.
yeah.
So the question becomes, why is it then that we're not doing, hybrids like diesel electrics like we do with locomotives? you know it's a simple technology that's been around for a long time. They use it in mining, they use it in locomotives, they use it in basically pretty much anything that is small enough to where an engine would suffice, but not too large that you want to look at an onboard nuclear reactor.
Right. I don't know. I think the world is slow towards that kind of stuff. They see it as nerdy, geeky, green, conservationist types, and they're like, we don't want to help those people, you know.
Well,
But the
that's the
truth is, I think it's awesome. I think that's the way the world is going, right?
Oh, and here's like, I love the fact that everything's moving towards electric. It's just that, you know, we've had that discussion of, what does power on demand look like?
Mm,
And realistically, like, our biggest issue right now is actually battery storage. Like, we could probably store enough we can generate enough electricity to where, if we could store it, we could take a car from one side of the country to the other and back and
mm,
not have any issues. It's just that we don't have the battery technology to do it. And so the question becomes, how do you mine that gap? Well, for some people, it's, we've got charging stations every, like, 100 miles. So that way people can sit it. But you still have that issue of, it takes like 15 minutes to get to an 80% charge,
mm,
whereas it takes 5 minutes to fill your tank up, and then you can drive for another 8 hours,
sure.
6 hours. But if you were to do like diesel electric hybrids, where the diesel is literally just powering the generator to generate, the electrical current, it doesn't even have to be anything big. That's the thing about it, is they can be small engines,
Hmm.
and it would most likely generate enough electricity for those batteries to be able to run them 1,000 miles, easy.
I
So
love
it's
it.
it's an I to me, it seems like a good step or an interim step, if we find ourselves having difficult doing the transition to electric. But I could also see where, instead of doing diesel electric, you could do hydrogen, like a hydrogen combustion engine,
Hmm.
um, where you do that instead. And so then you only have water and water vapor as your byproduct, but you're still using it to turn a generator to keep a battery power. To me, that seems like a very natural and logical progression, is, have vehicles that you plug in and be able to move around the city just
Hmm.
fine. But for people who are long distance commuters, or the people who are the traveling type, have yourself a hybrid engine that allows you to have, number one, the power, but number two, the distance. So that way you're not like, well, what happens if I decided to skip that last charging station? I saw that actually happen here not too long ago, where a Tesla, quote unquote, broke down. And of course, I'd stopped over and I was like, "Hey, what's going on? Do you need a lift?" He goes, "Well, I'm not really sure, but I think I forgot to charge my battery." And I was like, "Oh no." And of
Mm.
course, there's nothing you can do if you didn't charge that battery. You either have to tow it home, or you have to bring a generator over to power that thing until you can get enough electricity in it to drive it home.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yep.
I assumed that there was yeah, I don't know.
You drive it till it's dead. You're not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
so that's just a reality of having an all electric vehicle with no type of power on demand. To me, like, maybe it's not diesel, maybe it's hydrogen combustion,
Hmm.
and that makes sense.
I love that because Plug, the company I invested in, Plug, is working with somebody that's building electrolyzers. And
Hmm.
just for that, they need the component between what they have and what is out there now, the thing that actually converts the hydrogen. So,
I mean, like, it was like 15 years ago, Mercedes was testing out a hydrogen combustion engine, and they
mhm,
were getting 41 miles to the gallon doing 240 miles an hour.
yeah, that's so cool.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out who's got the balls to do 240 miles an hour long enough to figure out if you're getting 41 miles to the gallon.
Yeah,
Because at
yeah.
200 miles an hour, one little oops and you're going slideways.
Yeah. And another exciting thing is, I'm sorry, I was looking at my Robinhood, account, and GE, they got you were saying Jack, if they got Jack back, that
Hmm.
they would run leaner, and now they're saying he's running it leaner, and they're looking to move into the car market too, you
Hmm.
know. And so it's just kind of interesting that hydrogen technology and GE would be the innovators in the future of automobiles. I mean, at my age, I think it's just so cool. I thought GE was going to come back when COVID ended because of airplanes, because they built airplane parts, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And it's not it actually. They're looking to sell, I think they're looking to sell that off, but they're looking to run leaner in this new market. And having Shell, work on this green technology, having all of
Hmm.
the oil and gas companies being forced to innovate that way, and then have GE in the market and Plug with their hydrogen technology. It's really, I would love to be a fly on the wall at some
Oh,
Ford engineer's house, you know what I mean?
oh, yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is GE has made engines for a long time. They've made them. They've made them for fighter jets. They've
Mm-hmm.
made them for long distance bombers. The idea, for them getting into the electric engine market is just, absolutely, I would say, probably not just well within their wheelhouse, but
Mm-hmm.
actually probably their strength.
Like
You know,
Captain Obvious style.
but that's the thing though, is that sometimes it's, that 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 seems like a hard transition to make, and until you sit down and actually figure out what it's going to take, you know
Mm-hmm.
electric jet engines, that's going to be something that's absolutely wild.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking while you were talking about the electric cars. I was like, come to me when you got an electric Boeing, you know?
They're already testing them. They're already testing electric jet engines. That's just
Wow.
it. They're already doing tests on them, and that's going to be one of those things where it's like, okay, here we go. Let's see what you got. But there's you still have certain certain things where, I mean, petrochemicals are going to be necessary. Like, for example, anything that's going to require supersonic speed at this point.
Mm.
um, you're going to need like a traditional jet engine. So like you're looking at what's supposed to be the revival of Concorde coming back, being able to get to London in 3 hours, being able to get to Tokyo in five.
That's perfect. Because we don't need a military all over the world when we can get anywhere we want to be in 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have to laugh because like with the SR-71, like that just pops up every so often in my Reddit feed. Like, what people don't realize about that engine, that plane was so fast that literally the manual for missile evasion was
Mm,
just fucking floor it, because you could outrun any missile at the time.
that's so cool.
It's like, yeah, we'd get pinged and somebody'd launch a missile and we'd just hit the gas and that was it. It's like, you got to be kidding me.
So do you think autocracies are autocracies because of gas and oil and they know they're dinosaurs?
No, I don't think autocracies are autocracies because of gas and oil. I think that it does help in some situations, but I also think that autocracies are autocracies because you have to look at it like, does the person say things that come true? For example, you know, what are
Well, let me
I
rephrase that because, yeah, you're right. What I mean is, are autocracies going on the offensive because they realize that what their income is a dying thing, like Russia,
um
Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iran. These places seem to be forcefully autocratizing.
Well, I mean,
You know what I
so
mean?
like, Saudi Arabia has been an autocracy, a theocracy for a long time.
Yeah,
That's one of those ones where it's like, okay, whatever, that hasn't changed, and we certainly don't need to be the change agent for that. We've played that game, and we've gotten the T-shirts, and
yeah,
they are definitely losers' lunch. Uh, eh, but Saudi Arabia, interestingly enough, is actually doing more in investments in clean energy because they're like, yeah, we live in a desert. Oh, hey, we can collect a bunch of electricity and figure out
right.
how to do that. Okay, cool. Let's figure this out. So
Hmm.
don't be surprised if Saudi Arabia kind of enters the ball game in terms of being a green energy supplier and a
I love that.
petrochemicals supplier. I mean, they realize that oil's days are numbered. So the question is, how are they going to make that financial end meet without oil? And they're
Yeah.
gonna sit down and try and figure that out.
They
I
have
mean, you
just as much sun as they do oil,
pretty
probably
much.
more sun than they have oil.
Exactly. And so, how do can you be a power supplier to the region, to other places? Can you be a power supplier to Europe and beyond? You know, the, when countries like that figure that out, that they could take Russia's market share by simply being the power supplier to Europe.
Hmm.
Russia's going to be screwed because
Right.
realistically, kind of like what Washington State's looking at some point, like they're going to phase out fossil fuel systems. Like, so for example, I think it's in Seattle, new construction can't have forced gas heating.
Wow. Cool.
So that means that your option is electric heating. Well, electric heating is kind of, we're used to the old electric baseboards. Personally, I like electric floor heat. It's absolutely fantastic. It feels
Mm.
so good. But the question is where is that power going to come from? And with Saudi Arabia, they live in the perfect place to be able to generate a shit ton of electricity. So why not?
Hmm.
Why not be a regional electrical supplier? Why not?
Yeah.
Especially if they can figure out a couple things. Number one, if they can be a regional electric supplier, or number two, can they get some programs into place that allow them to be, I would say two things. Number one, could they, uh, Billy, hi. Billy's being a real goober here. Yes, yes, I know, I love you. So with Saudi Arabia, with the question is can they produce enough solar energy on its own? Or number two, could they do things like electrolysis of the ocean water and be able to generate hydrogen fuel power that way? Number
Mm.
one. And I would also say number two, you could then do things like irrigate the desert, for example, and make yourself some green spaces because you have that power on demand. That's one of Israel's strong suits is that they do ocean desalinization and create a bunch of agricultural water for themselves. And so places like California, where they haven't tried to invest in something like this, and instead you've
Hmm.
got the state drying out because the cities need a shit ton of water. It's
Yeah.
like, I get that they go nuclear bad, but unless you do some extreme investments in green energy and desalinization, nuclear is going to be your best option in order to get the water level demand that you need.
I just put a desalinization place. What is that? The old prison, right?
Hmm.
just off the coast of San
Yep.
Francisco, Alcatraz. Yeah, just put one where Alcatraz is. I just
Yeah.
think it's neat, like, but China's like heavily invested in coal, and there's Russia with their gas and oil, and I think
Yep.
of Venezuela with their gas and oil, and I think
Yep.
about us with our fracking and
Our
our,
gas and oil.
yeah, our gas. But we're just kind of a mix of everything. Like right now, it's like, um, there's a lot going on technology wise as far as
Hmm.
energy, and we haven't figured out the path yet, but we're trying everything.
We're trying everything, and and that's just it. Is that power generation is becoming less of a problem. The problem is power storage.
Mm-hmm.
As you're going to see with some of these weather events that knock the power out, I'm going to keep picking on Texas because, well, Texas is doing it again with their power grid. I'm actually, like, wow, you totally blew it the first time, and
Mm,
you're doubling down on this effort. Saying you got $250 million for a border wall, but you can't even keep the fucking lights on.
right.
What are you going to do next when the power goes out? Blame Antifa as well? Come on. What the
Mm-hmm.
fuck? Anyways,
That's so
ah,
funny.
damn Antifa and them not investing in our own power grid that we told the feds to go fuck themselves over. Look, like I said, I appreciate a good fuck the feds. And in all honesty, I really do think that, while you need to have an interconnected system, a
Mm-hmm.
very interconnected system, you also need to have a very segmented system. It's going to be your best way of ensuring that, your grid doesn't entirely go down. And Texas is proof that if you don't do it right, you're going to be screwed.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, uh wow,
Texas is screwed in so many ways, Jeffrey. I just don't understand it.
it's the classic blame everybody else, but the people who are actually making the laws, like, they knew that they needed to winterize their grid. They've known for 10 years, and
Mm-hmm.
they chose not to. But the funniest part about it is that after February, and having that much of a fatal, a fatal flaw in the system, they're not doing anything to modernize their grid. But they're like, yeah, no, we totally got 250 million for a border wall.
Mm.
Meanwhile, a fucking $200 ladder is going to fix that problem for people trying to cross the border.
I,
It doesn't. It's.
I don't like the border as is. You know that. You know my
I know you don't.
philosophy on that. So it's just
I.
it's going to become more apparent that we need to shorten our supply chains,
Mm,
invest in Mexico, de-invest from China, and
mm.
lose that border and just begin to Americanize South. You know what I mean?
Well, that makes more sense than the current method. Like,
Hmm.
if, like we've talked about, if you want people to stop coming across the border, you have to solve the root cause of why people are coming across the border.
That's right.
Building a wall doesn't work. It hasn't worked yet.
No, it just traps the people that are here. And it makes, if my family is here and they're trapped here, I'm going to work my ass off to get here to be with my family. You know what I mean? But all of us want to be in Mexico on like 100 acres of land, having fun, raising cattle, and that's the truth about they just want to live their lives. You know what I mean? They want to buy
Right.
the land. They want the opportunities in Mexico. And I am
Hmm.
all in favor of Ford plants and Apple. I was imagining this week, what if Apple just relocated to Mexico? You know what I mean? And was
Not
just
enough slave labor for them.
not enough. That's the issue. But that's my point. They would have to pay more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is where you get that, where things are going to be a little dicey, because we've been so used to technology upgrading at the speed of light,
Mm-hmm.
because number one, we had stable chip suppliers. Number two, we had stable cheap labor,
Mm-hmm.
and or free labor, I should say, in some cases.
That's what
And
I'm
number
saying.
and number three, it's allowed certain segments to progress as fast as possible. But once again, you have to look at this holistically. If your cool with getting technology on the cheap, why is it that you're getting it on the cheap? Is it because people are making fair market wages, or is it because you've got people that are literally trapped in camps and their choice is work or die?
Yeah.
You know, you got so you have to think about that. I mean, you look at some of the, you like for example, I look at the Supreme Court ruling on Nestle and child labor. If you saw that one here in the
I did
last
not
couple of
see that
weeks,
one.
basically a bunch of people that were child laborers in some of the cocoa fields in
Hmm.
another country sued in the United States, and it was ruled unanimously that they didn't have standing.
Interesting.
So
I
by the Supreme
briefly
Court.
saw something about that. And I can't.
So
Yeah. Okay.
it's one of those things where it's like, as consumers, we have to demand better.
Mm-hmm.
And as consumers, we've got to be the ones that say, hey, this is where we want you to invest. Governments, as part of that, need to say, look, what COVID showed us is that in the event of a global emergency, everybody's going to think for themselves and do for themselves.
Right.
And so you have to figure out how you're going to change your supply routes in order to deal with that. Now, there's already plans to have chip makers in the US. To me, that's not enough. You
Mm.
know, we've got neighbors that we could look at investing in.
Yeah. Puerto
You
Rico.
know,
Hi.
it's there's and it's going to solve what some people think is multiple problems, is that,
Mm-hmm.
if you have the ability to put people to work in these other spaces, you're going to see that the
Mm-hmm.
flow of migration to the United States is going to stem really hard, because stable, good paying jobs means that the cartel doesn't get its cut.
That's right.
And if you think for a second that if that they're just going to prop these plants up and then not do anything about the cartel, that's, hilarious, because I guarantee you that someone will do something about the cartel if that's the case.
Hmm. Joe Manchin, no, Joe Biden was talking about crime. And I was thinking to myself, well, what causes crime? And it's you need good working conditions and a living wage, and that cures almost like all crime. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah,
if everybody are working and they're
you
getting
need good
paid, and
you need
it's
good working conditions, good
right.
pay, but the third element is that you need to understand what the black market is.
Mm-hmm.
And so by understanding what that black market is, and either figuring out what a substitute good for that black market is that can be legal, or number two, as we've tried to do, eliminate the black market.
Right.
uh you know it's one of those things, like, as you've seen states legalize marijuana, you're starting to see other drug use go down.
Mm-hmm. But are we seeing less incarcerations? Because to me, the nonviolent offense is a
Actually,
major thing, you know?
the last data set that I saw, the answer was actually yes. We were seeing less incarcerations.
That's cool.
Um, so it's we still have issues with who is being incarcerated, but yes,
Hmm.
we have less incarcerations. And the reality is that, we have to figure out what is the root cause of those incarcerations. To me, like, the idea that we have for-profit prisons is an absolute fucking nightmare to me,
Hmm.
because basic economics, supply and demand, you've created a demand for prisoners
That's
by
right.
having a for-profit system. We shouldn't want to have to put anybody in jail. That's the real answer. That should be
That's
the
right.
real answer. The real answer should be that the people that are being put in prison are too dangerous to be out in society. And I'm sorry, you're
Mhm.
not going to convince me that somebody smoking pot is too dangerous to be out in society. He's lucky if he can find the fucking bag of Cheetos in his own feet.
Right. But every nonviolent offense has a stem cause, and if you
Mm,
address the stem cause, then you'll eliminate repeat offenders. And the
yep.
other thing is, once somebody is offender or is felon, then it's a totally different world. That is a different world for somebody that has a felony as opposed to anybody else. And we need to eliminate that. The one thing I was hoping Donald Trump would do was to pardon everybody in the United States. I thought he was definitely going to do that. He was
Yeah.
just going to cause chaos and then everybody would have their felonies eliminated. And I thought, how cool of a world would it be where felons could get a house or a job or an apartment or have any sort of life at all. You know what I mean? Vote
Well,
again.
well,
Wow.
yeah,
You
and
know?
this is where it's like, to me, you have to look at it from whether the crime has a victim or not. Like
Exactly.
an actual victim. I'm sorry, but somebody buying sex work is, to me, that's not somebody who needs to have their rights stripped.
Right.
Sex work is work. Period. End of story.
Th- th-
Legalize it, tax it. I have my own feelings on the whole tax it thing, but
mm,
if you want to keep people from sex trafficking, there are plenty of people out there that are probably willing to do sex work because you know what? Hey, it pays.
Yeah.
And number two, like some of these other drug crimes, some of these other crimes that are, they're the only victim is the person who is actually partaking. In which
Right.
case, guess what? Putting them in jail isn't fixing the problem.
Mm-mm. But they
You
think
need to
somehow
actually,
it's a detox. It's a replacement for detox.
well, that's what they do is they use it as a method of detox. And
hmm
then it's like, okay, cool, you piss clean, so obviously you're healed. Yay, thoughts and
Right.
prayers, and you toss them out onto the street, and then watch as 6 to 12 months later they're back in the system,
Yeah. My
and that
my
doesn't make any sense.
my hope would be that you incorporated a campus of trade schools and college, you
Hmm.
know, college opportunities and prison as well. And
Hmm.
it was just a campus. And if you were had a nonviolent offense, then yes, you might go there for 3 months, but there would be no discerning you from any other student there,
And really, like, your biggest issues that you're going to have to look at is, even in the nonviolent realm, is you're going to like I said, you're going to have to look at who the victim is.
hmm
Theft is going to be a big problem. Now the question is what does that theft look like? We've spent so much time prosecuting people who are just trying to survive. And when
hmm
you look at, I would say what I would call, semi-legal theft, when you look at like the great recession of 2008,
hmm
how many people literally stole so much from other people, and not a single fucking jail sentence was handed out for that.
right.
you know there were victims there truly were victims there, but because of the way the system is set, you know tough titty says the kitty.
hmm
Really, the realistic approach is that it's like, if it's a non-violent offense, then the next question is there an actual, second party victim? And if that second party victim doesn't exist, there has to be a way to just, once you have served your time and your community service, whatever it is,
hmm
it's done. It's off your record. You have to start treating people as though, like, if you're going to send them to these places, that they are actually rehabilitated.
Right. And
You
there it
actually have to rehabilitate them. Otherwise, we got to stop calling it the Department of Corrections. We just got to call it the Department of Punishments, because that's realistically all it is.
and that boils down to the fact that you were talking about one of the major problems. I think one of the major fires is police officer discretion. And I don't know how to fix that. But the fact that a police officer can decide whether to pull you over or not, send you to jail or just write you a ticket, call it a felony or a misdemeanor, bring up charges around that or not, and the fact that, like, in the process, you can build on a case or strip down a case based on plea agreements, non plea agreements. If
Hmm.
the guy's being a nice guy, a bad guy, if you don't like his attitude, all of that determines the amount of time and the charge you're going to get. And I just think that's so ridiculous
I
in a
think
system.
Oregon just passed laws, in which, like, low level infractions are not going to be, you can't pull people over for them anymore. Like, literally, we have the technology to capture their plate and
Right.
capture their speed. So you capture their plate, you capture their speed, you send them a ticket. all of these pretextual stops
Hmm.
is just garbage, because this is how you end up with innocent dead people because the cop got a little too nervous. Okay,
Right.
well, if you're afraid for your life at every fucking stop, then the answer is that you shouldn't be stopping anybody. Period. End of story.
Right. But if you build a for-profit prison in a town, then
Yep.
suddenly all the police around it are looking to fill that prison, right? So suddenly the charges go from stupid misdemeanors to resisting arrest and all of these other things that they try and put the scarlet F on somebody, felons, so that you can't vote and you have no more rights anymore.
Well, that
And
was like,
then,
well, and that's just it. If I remember right, because I was looking at the data, Oregon's system, the reason why they've decided to switch over is that I think the people of color make up 6% of the population in Portland, but they were 18% of all traffic stops and tickets.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
That's
So,
that's this. Oh, sorry, I'm playing with my microphone. That's the systemic part to me is the
mhm,
fact that the police, the prosecutors, they all have the discretion to make a light, because I got pulled over and I had a dugout and I had like some resin in the one hitter. I went and the guy wanted to give me 5 years of jail time for that. And a lady walked up and I got talked down to $800 fine, 400 for each. And I was like, I could have gone to jail today. And that's the ridiculousness of it. And that's how close
mhm,
so many people are to just being a part of the system that they can't get
mhm.
out of?
Yep. And that's one of those things, like, if you're going to say that people are too reliant on the system, then you have to do things that keep people out of the system, and you have to approach it actively. The idea that you're going to have a bunch of people that have literally been jailed for really dumb things
Right.
not be able to be a part of society, that's I'm sorry, that's unfortunately, I that's a system design is what that is.
Hmm.
If you don't want people reliant on the system, stop putting them in a position that leaves them nothing but reliant on the system. Because let's be realistic. I've known people who, they can't get their shit together, period, end of story. And when they start to get desperate, they go commit a crime to go
Hmm.
back to jail.
Right. They don't know anything else. And they have no other opportunities. They can't get a job, they can't get an apartment, you can't buy a house, you can't get an education. There's nothing you can do, and you can't even vote for people that would support you. You know what I mean? And that's the whole issue is that we have a system for poor people that just spits them back into the system and never gives them an opportunity because they're just stuck on a wheel. They're stuck on a gear. They're being ground to death. There's no opportunity anymore?
Absolutely. And that's just one of those things where, there are companies out there that have done things to try and put people back to work. Like Dave's Killer Seed Bread, Dave's Killer Bread,
Mhm.
where, they have a large part of their workforce are, ex-convicts. Great, fantastic. You know, they make great products. So, to me, it's one of those things, like, whatever you're going to do to solve the problem, you gotta be able to create that lack of reliance on the system, but more importantly, make sure that people get the help that they need in order to get off the system in
Mm.
general.
Yeah.
With the prison system, I mean, what is it that's keeping people on the system? What is it that has got people trapped? Is it poverty? Is it drug addiction? Is it mental health? Is it any number of things? Is it systemic issues because the cops in the area like to constantly fucking ruffle feathers, you
I
know?
think I think that's a part of it.
Oh, absolutely. That's a part of it. When you got, there, you shouldn't that's you shouldn't have quotas
Yeah.
for arrests, for tickets, for anything like that. That's bullshit. There shouldn't be a demand for that. It should be, you did something, here's the ticket.
Totally agree. And I'm gonna pick on the police officers. I'm gonna let you talk. Hey, Derek Chauvin got sentenced. I'm gonna let you talk, and I'm gonna be right back.
Alrighty. Yeah, Derek Chauvin got sentenced to 22 and a half years for murder. And that's one of those things where I think that's a good start, but I think that we've got a long ways to go. Derek Chauvin is just one person who is a greater part of the problem, a greater part of the callousness of how do you police a community. Um, it's really unfortunate that it's taken it took somebody's life in order to change that the way that we approach police violence. That's really it's gross. It's like it's really gross. Like I don't have any other words for it, to be perfectly honest. 22 and a half years for murder is what I would consider a pretty good start. The reality is that at the 85% rule, he'll probably be out in, oh, 17, 18 years if he is on good behavior. And that's, the question of justice is there. But this last week, we actually saw a different side of this, and this is one that I'm interested in seeing how this gets played out. If you heard about the shooting in Colorado, where a guy gunned down a police officer with an AR,
Hmm,
and an armed citizen gunned down the shooter.
really?
Yeah, only to when he went over to the shooter to remove his rifle from him, another cop came around the corner and shot the hero.
No
That's
way.
Yep. Look it up.
What?
Uh, it's absolutely wild. So you have this case of good guy with a gun stopping a shooter with an AR, only to get gunned down by the cops after.
Wow.
So I'm curious to see if Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter show up for this one. I'm gonna bet
Sure.
no, personally, because they can only show up when black guys get killed. So,
Yeah, but we got Lauren Boebert there, and she's always
oh,
looking for attention. So there
oh,
could be a big rally. You know what I mean?
oh, there's
Or
not gonna be shit. They'll probably. I'm waiting for the smear campaign on the dude to start any moment now. Like seriously, where's Blue Lives Matter? Where's All Lives Matter? Where's everybody who's pro 2A? Like
hmm,
literally, I'm getting more news from them than from any of my gun loving friends, and I'm like, wow, some of y'all really, really barked up the wrong tree, and you're sticking with that. Okay,
yeah,
I'm impressed.
I love the fact that you didn't mention the color of anybody in the incident. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know.
So so this is going to be an interesting one. It is, unfortunately, like this is one of those things where I want desperately somebody to prove me wrong. Like I like being right, but man, there are times I really wish somebody would fucking prove me wrong, because
Yeah.
this is one of those situations where it's like you're going to sit here and you're going to tout all of these stories. You're going to tell me about how blue lives matter, and that,
Mhm.
good, you're going to tell me about good guys with guns. You're going to tell me about why the Second Amendment is needed. And when all of those scenarios came into one fucking incident, it is goddamn crickets.
Right.
So basically all of those things that happened during the last year are exactly what the rest of us thought it was. It was racist fucking dog whistling in a response to fucking white supremacists and white rage.
White rage is a thing, apparently, huh?
hmm You know, it's one of those things. Like this is a really interesting issue that I don't understand the mental side of it,
Yeah.
because it's people are feeling attacked for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Like we said, it's that, equal rights for everybody doesn't mean you have less rights, but
Right.
somehow it gets construed as somebody having less rights. Like when somebody comes out on their sexuality, and the first thing that some parents do is they're like, did we raise you wrong? It wasn't anything
Right.
about how you fucking raised them.
Right.
It isn't anything about how you raised this person.
Hmm.
And the idea that it's like, should white people feel bad right now for the system the systems that were created 100 years ago, 150 years ago? No, but it's incumbent upon them to fix those issues as you find them. And that's
Individually, I
just it.
believe. I
And
believe that we
that's
all need to work on ourselves that way. The system might be hundreds of years old, but your part in it can stop
mhm.
at any time, and that's it. Like
Uh,
individually, we need
yep.
to address our actions, and systemically, hopefully, that will change things.
Absolutely. And so the idea that there isn't some sort of systemic issues, we know that's not true.
Hmm.
We If you had a decent history teacher in high school, you know about the three-fifths compromise. You know about the literacy tests in order to vote. You
Hmm.
know about the poll tax. These were things that were passed to keep black people from voting.
Hmm.
This isn't anything, these are the big ones that we know about that were deemed to be illegal and unconstitutional. But
Yeah.
the idea that there isn't anything more subtle sitting within the system, that's not really true either. As a data person, like I said, when you have 6% of the population getting 18% of the tickets,
Hmm.
that's quite a deviation from what you should expect. If 6% of the population were getting, say, maybe 9% of the tickets, yeah, you probably want to look into that. But that's, it's not great, but it's not terrible. But at 18, like three times the rate of the population, something's going on there.
And
Something's going on there. You
I
got to
think
look into that.
I think the problem is you can't, nobody studies a case from beginning to end that way.
Hmm.
Like, I'm thinking about it, and the arrest, that might be the issue. Who's arresting, right? But then
Hmm.
again, is it I always go to a living wage because if you don't have the money to fix your car, if you don't have the money to get the sticker, if you don't have the money to fix your brake light this week, you
Hmm.
could be screwed. And all a police officer has to do is go into a low income community and he's going to find a loud muffler or a broken tail light or a car
Hmm.
that's been sitting too long. And it's so easy. It's like fish in a barrel. And I think
Hmm.
yeah, but who studies that? And then, like I said, when the guy is officially booked into the system or brought in for conversations, how does that go? And how does somebody of color get treated as opposed to somebody that isn't? Because it's just tones are more respectful. I think I'm a little more respectful with my verbiage than somebody that has lesser education, but then somebody feels the same way down the chain. And so I worry about all of that, but nobody pays attention to that from beginning to end, how somebody's treated from the very beginning to the end. If somebody could
Yeah.
study all of those cases, then we would find out that there is so many biases in the system, and
Hmm.
that's how you iron it out is by determining where they are, and they can be anywhere. They can be
Right.
anywhere. A judge has a bad day, that's a shame, you know what I mean?
If a judge has a bad day, that sucks. But like, for example, judges are harsher before they eat lunch versus after they eat lunch.
Exactly.
That's something else. Why is that an issue? Does that mean that procedural stuff should be in the mornings and sentencing should be in the afternoons? You know,
No, all the
because
white people get the mornings.
oof, you
Well,
know,
because everybody that's incarcerated, I know this from being at court, everybody that's incarcerated comes out in the afternoon. You know what
hmm,
I mean? And everybody that, if you got a ticket and you're just going to plead guilty and pay your charges, those people come in the morning, 9 a.m.
right. That's just it. looking at looking at all of these systems is going to be important, because the reality is that it should, there should be, you should be able to see the standard deviation look pretty similar. You shouldn't see anything lopsided.
Right.
And that's just not the case right now. So, unfortunately, we, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, I think of it as fortunately we have the chance to do some good work to
Hmm.
make things equitable, not
Right.
just equal, equitable. So
But
that way,
again,
we have, because we have to create ways in which people aren't going to be on the system.
right. But I think it's imperative of everybody that's a part of the system to stop pointing fingers at everybody else and realize that it's you. It's you. It's you.
Hmm.
That's the problem. Even if you're a minor point in it, even if you just accept what's going on and you don't report it. The problem with bad cops is that good cops don't report them before they do something bad. And that's the truth. Same
Hmm.
with prosecutors. There's good prosecutors, there's bad prosecutors, and there's bad judges and there's good judges. And
I've worked with all of them.
yeah,
I've worked with some marshals that have been great and on the level. I've worked with some marshals that are really crappy. I've worked with some judges who are absolute, they are, they very much equally apply the law. I've worked with some judges who don't. I've worked with some prosecutors who it's like, hey, how do we get this, how do we get the interest of justice and make sure that we create some pathways and goodwill. And I've worked with some people that all they want to do is they just want to be able to throw the book as hard and as far as they can, and they're not
right,
interested in anything else. And that's just it, is that not everything requires somebody to be made an example of. In fact, it should be the
right.
rare case.
That's right, but that's the issue is that people aren't policing themselves. That's the way I feel about drug users, gun users, and people in the criminal justice system. You need to be like, that's not right. And because
Well,
people
you
don't
also
need
have
their
to
fair day.
you also have to have it you also have to have these checks and balances in such a way that you don't have the chance to investigate yourself and then determine you did nothing wrong.
Well, yeah, exactly. But nobody's doing their job alone and by themselves. They're all accountable to the public scrutiny. It's just the public doesn't know it well enough, and the prosecutor against the defense attorney does. And both of them know what the judge is doing. And, the criminal knows exactly who's screwing him too. It's just there's nobody there to take a record of the final, like I said, there's nobody watching the thing from beginning to end to study it and say this is where the issue was. But there's always going to be an issue. And if the people don't hold each other accountable, if I don't hold you accountable, Jeffrey, and let you and
Hmm.
when and just let you say something stupid, not that you ever have, but if you said something outrageously stupid and conspiracy like, I would have to call you out on it because we need to police each other. We can't just, oh,
Absolutely.
I'll let an audience member police it. No, that's not how it works.
Well, and that's just it, is that like all of these systems, we have a chance to do better.
Hmm.
And it's the you should be wanting these outside eyes to sit down and say, hey, this is where we can do better, this is
Right,
where you can do better.
right.
I think that the whole ending the stops for people who are speeding is just one step, one simple step.
It's a great step.
And I can hear, and I can already hear it now. But what about all the people who are running drugs? Blah blah blah. Well, like anything else, you actually have to do the police work in order to figure out if whether or not you have a reason to stop somebody.
Eliminate the.
These pretextual stops are they're dangerous. They are
Yeah,
absolutely dangerous.
yeah.
They've ended more lives than they should ever have.
Right. I always wonder why a police officer escalates. At some point, you have a chance to just go like, "Fuck it, not today." You know what I mean? But they, like Derek Chauvin, at any point he could have been like, "Yeah, fuck it, I don't want to kill somebody today." You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's a
Like
trigger.
literally, it was, at some point all you had to do, was just stand them up,
Yeah,
cuffs
just
on.
just
You
stop.
literally cuff the ankles together. Like they have shackles.
Right.
Literally could have had just had a shackle system and been like, all right, you ain't gonna be able to go anywhere, but you
Hmm.
ain't gonna get kneeled on to death.
Right. You know, it's amazing. I heard on the news today, finally, somebody addressing the issue that, it was his anxiety and claustrophobia that caused his death. And that's a disabled thing. Thank you, America. Intersectionality again. And I love that somebody noticed that claustrophobia is a disability. You know what I mean? And so
Hmm.
the fact that he was thrown to the ground because of it, I don't, and what they're saying is they didn't charge Derek Chauvin with a hate crime because there was no proof that race was a cause. But there is definitively proof that his disability caused his death. And that is also a hate crime. And it bugs me that they didn't even consider that?
And then, unfortunately, the bar for determining what's a hate crime is so fucking high.
Hmm.
Like I mean, pretty much unless you're yelling, if you're unless you're yelling slurs
Right.
or you're like texting slurs,
Yeah.
like they won't even try to go there. Like you legitimately have to be so overt that they're like, well, did he say it once? Did he say it more
Right.
than once? Did he say it
Right.
more than twice?
Did he
Oh
say it
God, do I
as
really
he was
have to
shooting
add
them?
this? Do I
Right.
really have to look at this as a hate crime? Can we just say like, if you say three slurs or more, what about four? Like literally, it's like they don't want to touch it. They don't want to dig into it,
Yeah.
and that's bullshit.
I mean, even if you just brought light to the fact that it was, then that would be nice. Because I think we need to realize that we have a rare opportunity to combine forces. Because I can't find a current stat, Jeffrey. If you can find a current stats at some point, last stat I saw was a year ago, and it was 50% of all people that are shot are disabled, because in some way mental impairment is a disability as well. And
Hmm.
I'd like to find a current stat on how many people, black and white, that are killed by the police are people with
With
a
disabilities.
disability. But we're going to wrap
It's
up
yeah.
this hour. We're going to wrap up this hour, and I just want to ask you, what's one way that you stay positive? What's one
Ooh,
coping skill that you use to stay positive?
humor. And I'll give you a great example. Like whenever I have a hard day and somebody tells me to stay positive,
Hmm.
first thing I say is, "All right, I'm positive this is gonna suck."
There you go.
And of course, it usually gets a good laugh out of everybody. And it's like, you know, you just you have to recognize that if a day is going to be a hard day, you just inject some humor into it because otherwise you will go crazy.
I agree. I agree. I love that. You know what I realized? I don't make other people's problems my problem until they ask me to help. Like,
Mhm.
I'll let things go by. I don't really care if a random stranger is struggling. If they need help, I'm happy to help them, though. But I
Mhm.
don't suddenly say, "Oh shit, that's all on me. It's all on my shoulders." No,
Right.
my life is on my shoulders, and I
Mhm.
should learn to ask people for help, because then they feel better asking help from me. But generally, I don't let
Mhm.
shit roll downhill. If shit comes to me, it doesn't go past me.
Right.
I love you. Thanks for being
WD.
here, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Welcome back to Public Access America.
Uh, I need to grab
So
myself some more coffee because coffee is
go ahead.
fantastic. Coffee's one of those things where like
It's wonderful. I love it.
it's like 85 degrees outside already and I'm drinking hot coffee.
That's why I have air conditioning, because I like comforters and coffee. Hey, so we're hosted by Red Circle, just to kick this hour off. And if you want to post your podcast for free and earn incentives while building your audience, Red Circle might be the way to go. Not Anchor, like Adam from Adam Has a Beard went. Adam, we got beef, and you know that. So go ahead and post up to Anchor if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did want to say that we're in a weird position, Jeffrey, which is
Mhm.
but what we're doing now is we are going to start creating exclusive content, or offering exclusive content, but Red Circle says we need $500 worth of exclusive subscriber content. And I don't know how to
Mhm.
do that. How do you get people to invest in exclusive content when you can't actually offer the content until until you get to a threshold? So $399, we still can't give them the exclusive content, and that bugs me. But we're working on it.
Mhm.
And so If you go to Twitter at Public Access Pod, you're going to see these tweets, help us reach our goals and everything. And it's going to have the red circle link. It's actually a week or $50 a year. And so that's nice. All we need is 10 people to invest in our exclusive content for the first $500. So 50 for a year, and we can start exclusive content. And I like that. And by the way,
Ooh.
Jeffrey, as well, we have ads running in our podcast now. And I just want to let
Oh.
you know about that. We have earned money. I don't want to say too much on air because I don't want people coming to attack me. But I did want to ask you,
Mm-hmm.
what I feel is the first $500, I'd like to invest in something. And I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to ask people, what would you like to end if you could end something? Like I don't like homelessness. I would like to
Mm.
end homelessness. So
Yeah.
something achievable that we can start working towards and donating to and addressing and highlighting and working on something like that. So what would you like to end if you could end something?
Food insecurity. That's one that's near and dear to my heart. And given that we live in a country that is such a prolific producer, there's just no reason why there should be hunger in this country, let alone any country. So,
Love that. I'm going to go
and to
with
me, those two
food
things go hand in
insecurity
hand.
too.
Those two
Yes,
things go hand in hand.
right. I always wonder what is the fire hose that spits out homeless people, and food insecurity is definitely one of those. So yeah,
Hmm.
I like that. Plus, one of my dream conversations with you was always the 3D garden. I love
Hmm.
it. The office three-level office building with the fish in the bottom and the water that cycles up to the fruits and the vegetables and the roof and all of
Hmm.
that stuff and making that a co-op and putting that in a food desert, an urban food desert. That I love that. That was one of my favorite concepts that we came up with.
Oh, and to me, like things like that are fantastic because it gives you so much positivity and positive growth within the community
Hmm.
because like you said, number one, puts food in a food desert. Number two, sustainable agriculture. Number three, it helps disrupt the school to prison pipeline, get
Yes.
people or the recidivism rate, get people back, to work, working good paying jobs, working with their community, so that way they
Mhm.
don't, there isn't that issue of whether or not they're going to end up going back to prison.
Right, education. I love that. That somebody could
Hmm.
go there as a child and just get a job and grow up. That's what I did as a child. I would go to I worked at White Hen and worked my way up. I was a candy stocker, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think we need to learn that everybody needs to learn that that's how things go. And you can create your own thing or help somebody on their path by working
Hmm.
at their business, but we need to realize that trudging forward day in and day out and learning as we go is the way that we improve ourselves.
Absolutely. So it's definitely one of those good things where it's like we have the chance to do so much, um, that we just have to figure out how do you take that first step and how do you make that work.
Right. Well, the lucky thing about that is there's only real seven distributors of food in the world, right?
Hmm.
So that's seven emails.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. You just
Yep.
need those companies. Once I get the name of those companies, then I'll just send an email and say, hey, can you give 550,000 people in America free food, please?
Help. Can you help address the fresh fruit and vegetable deserts that exist within this country?
Right. And I love the co-op idea. And I
Hmm.
like that you could just have like a bodega at the bottom, just
Hmm.
off to the side selling this stuff. It's just people don't realize it because I think we're stuck in this fast food fascination. Well, I think we're at the tail end of the fast food fascination because now even Domino's is offering gluten-free pizza crust. But I think people don't realize how good it feels to consistently eat vegetables and fruit and
Hmm.
like raw materials, non-processed, not non-frozen with, these byproducts in it, just fresh food.
Hmm. It's absolutely fantastic. It tastes great. It is great. It's you know and anybody will tell you that, something grown in the garden and picked is so much better than something that you've had to, you
Mm,
know go to the grocery store and buy. The flavor is different, the texture
exactly.
is different. It's just, yeah, maybe it's that whole, I can taste the hard work I put into something.
Yeah.
But also too, I mean, there's there's just so many different reasons why that is. I mean, nutrient content in the soil, nutrient content available, whether or not something was vine ripened versus ripened on the way to the grocery store.
hmm Like sprayed with CO2. A lot of trucks keep the CO2 in in there just to keep the tomatoes green, you know what I mean?
Yep, that's exactly it. We were talking about that here the other day, where Debbie and I were talking about how, with fruits and vegetables, they use different gases in order to keep the fruit preserved,
Yeah.
before it makes it to the grocery store.
Or the meat red. Just learning that they run
Dyes
lights
and
in and yeah, pump it with
yep.
oxygen to keep it fresh. And I've been trying to explain to my friend that there's this 3 day rule with meat. Once it's frozen or you bring it home, you have like 3 days to eat it, use it and
Hmm.
eat it. And you can freeze it to give it a little more time, but if you freeze it at 3 days, you better eat it when you unfreeze it. You know what I mean? But there is
Right.
some foods like ham that are a little longer and chicken that I wouldn't trust as long. And so
Right.
it's teaching people these basic things, like I a long time ago I talked to Dan about teaching kids not to eat the green ham. Like a kid comes home from school and nobody's there to teach him not to eat the green ham and he just says, "Well, that ham was good yesterday, but today it's kind of green. I'm going to eat it." And he gets sick and there's a
Hmm.
bill. And all we need is somebody to have a living wage to get mom home when the
Hmm.
kid gets home, you know what I mean?
And that's one of the things that I know we've talked about so frequently, is that, the idea that, at one point in time you only needed one earner in order to make things work, and now it's you have to have two.
Yeah, and a side
It's,
hustle, right?
yeah. So it's one of those things that's just absolutely, it's rough. It's, all what COVID at least gave us a chance to relearn is that the more involved you are in your kids' lives, the better that they do most of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
I say most of the time.
that's hilarious. I saw a tweet from Google Technologies how about how they were transforming the home platform for people that work from home and how they're revolutionizing this idea of working from home. And I had to ask them which disability group they were working with or consulting with because they have the opportunity to transform this and level the playing field for people with disabilities and not, that all can
Hmm.
work from home. And if they could just incorporate that and get some advice from disabled people on how to transform, then they would be much better off and they have a chance to help 49 million people discover independence.
Hmm. Or, how do you help, you've got the disability side, or how do you help someone work from home so that way you keep a parent in the home.
Right. I think these things are so exciting, but people don't realize the opportunities they have. Because
Right. And
we were talking on, sorry, we recorded Friday for Inspirations Beyond Disabilities. We got four guys together and they were gamers and they were techies and they were just talking about map navigation and how that works on a watch but not for public transit. So I'm just really excited to see where technology goes because technology that was created for the blind we all use in texting, and so any innovation for the blind will help everybody. And I just
mhm.
love the fact that people are trying to innovate in a space where it needs innovation.
Oh, absolutely. There is so much that can be done with technology these days, and it's, we're going to figure out ways to, in where, in which we can get a better standard of living for just about everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing's ever going to be perfect, as much as we
No.
would like it to be, but it can certainly be better than what it is.
I love it. That was a slow arc transition. Did you hear about the five new bills that they're trying to gather and put into law to protect us from the evil tech giants?
I have definitely seen some of them. So that's an interesting one. I feel like they don't quite have them all thought out yet. I think,
Right.
it's funny because both parties are pissed at the tech giants and how they're working. It's like, cool, I'm glad that you both have arrived at the same conclusion, but
But right, exactly. I
it's
think
like,
it's a bunch of old guys that don't know what tech is. They used to rely on policy from the tech companies themselves, and now that they
mhm.
don't want that from them, they're having a hard time drafting their own policy because they don't have anybody young enough that uses the technology like Snapchat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, like their problems, the problems that the two groups have are very different.
Hmm.
You've got one group who's saying that there's pretty much anti compete and antitrust,
Right.
and you got another group saying that they're literally just silencing, and they both have arrived that the big tech industry is a problem. They just have two different reasons as to why.
Hmm.
And funny enough, they didn't seem to have that much of a problem with it while they were getting donations, neither of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
so now that both the tech companies are like, yeah, we should probably pull back on donating to the parties. Now all of a sudden they're like, big tech is the problem. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah, it was the problem as soon as Donald Trump used it, figured out how to use it. You know what I mean?
it was
And
a
even
problem before that.
he only used Twitter. Everybody else that on his, team used everything else. I never saw him once on Facebook. But one of the things was that yes, Facebook couldn't just buy up like an Instagram or a WhatsApp to silence them. That they might actually try and break them down into parts. But then I hear news that um, Facebook is trying to get into podcasting, and people are asking, "Would you use Facebook for podcasting?" And I would say no.
Yeah, the way that Facebook controls and keeps your content is just absolutely not.
Right. That was what I was telling my friend. I was like, the only reason I'm still on Facebook is because they have my data. And if I leave, I feel like it's saying, go ahead, keep my data. I'm out of here. And I want,
Supposedly you can download it and delete it. Supposedly.
sure, but they already own it. They already own it. I mean, it's already out there in the universe. They're sharing it with Google. They're sharing it with everything,
Yep.
everything,
Yep.
and Amazon has it all. And so,
Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Apple, Facebook. I mean, all of them have data. All of them are using it.
yeah.
And it's just, one of the things that I've told people, and I'll say it again, is that the price for using free software, free systems, free platforms is your data. And people are finally starting to get pissed about that. I'm like,
Hmm.
it's like this has been a thing for the last 10 years easily.
Yes.
So why is it that it's taking you this long to finally be upset about it?
Exactly. But if it's something of value, then it's something of value to me and it's mine. And you can't just steal it without compensation. And like you said, that's the free app. That's
Hmm.
access to Facebook.
Hmm.
That's the price. I'm still paying a fortune. Like I don't know how much my data is worth. I don't know how much they make on just my data, but that is the price that I pay to be on Facebook.
Yep. And to me, it's also one of those things where it's like, look, if I honestly thought that they should have a paid version where I could get rid of all of these fucking ads because Facebook was great for me when I first joined because it was fun to just share goofy photos of my
Yeah.
friends and poke
Yeah.
wars and write on each other's walls.
Hmm.
Now it's like, okay, here's a friend, ad, political advertisement, news article, friend,
Right.
ad. And it's like, oh my god.
And that's with ads turned off. Like I have all of that turned off in Facebook settings. Like they can't access it, but they change the settings. They update, and then suddenly I have to go back in and undo all that stuff. And I don't like that. I don't like Facebook. I have very few friends, and I'm trying to get everything away from Facebook. I would just leave Facebook right now if 48 other people left Facebook.
Hmm. And really, like, I really hardly post anything anymore unless I'm just being a fucking goof,
Right?
just because it's like, everything's just political, and it's absolutely annoying. I don't just get to see my friends' stuff and comment on my friends' stuff, like,
Right.
hardly at all. And even when I even when there is political stuff, it's usually just a dumpster fire. And so, pretty much the only reason that I have Facebook is for the messenger. So that way it's easy for me to send gifs and videos and pictures, and
Yeah.
like I did last night, and then I was chatting with Adam and having some fun. I tried to send a link to Adam because we were having ourselves a real raunchy conversation,
Hmm.
and he's like, "So where's the site that I can go for this?" And of course, I thought it'd be hilarious to write, "Oh yeah, you can totally look this up at www.pennisland.com," and it blocked Penn Island. It says you can't send this.
Really?
Yep. So I took a screenshot of it and sent it to Adam. I'm like, "Can't send the link. Can I send this link that's terrible? No. Can I send a picture of the link? Yeah, sure. Fuck it. Good enough."
That's
And so of course I
hilarious.
sent it to Adam, and he was just losing it last night.
I love Adam. He's a great guy.
Oh fuck.
Sorry he's on Anchor instead of Red Circle. We got beef, but other than that, you're good, Adam. You're good. So
Friendly
one of
competition is always great.
my favorite things, and it's a story, and I get to promote at the same time. We talked about two of my stocks in the first episode, but my third one of my third stocks is Snapchat. And a
Hmm.
little girl took Snapchat all the way to the Supreme Court and took the stock back to one of its highest prices of the year simply by saying F cheer.
Hmm. Yep. Oh, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I
That was
love
that
that
was
she
hilarious.
and the fact that she did it on Snapchat just made my day.
That's the funny thing about the whole argument for and against freedom of speech. One of the things that I've told people is that, look, if you think true freedom of speech exists where you get to say anything you want and there are zero consequences, let I want you to try two things. Number one, I want you to go into the middle of a busy Costco and just start yelling "fuck" as loud as you can and find out what happens. You ain't gonna get. I'll make it quick. You're not gonna get to stay in the store.
Right.
On the second one, I want you to go into a church and start yelling "fuck" as loud as you can, and tell me if you get to stay in that church.
Wow.
Guarantee you the answer is no. So, does true freedom of speech actually exist? Well, I mean, you do get to say whatever you want. You just don't have freedom from consequences.
Right.
You can say fucking Costco in a church. The consequence is they're kicking your ass out.
Right. Exactly.
And just like anything else, the dumber the thing that you say, or the more vile and vicious the thing that you say, the greater the penalties are. It's like I had posted,
Mhm.
you can say whatever you want. You absolutely can, but are you prepared for the cost of saying whatever it is that you want?
Sure.
Because that cost is different. That cost is different no matter what it is.
You don't get to choose it. That's the funny
You
thing.
don't get to choose the consequence. That's just it.
Yeah.
You don't get to choose what that cost is. Is that cost like you're getting booted out of a store? Okay. Trespass permanently? Okay. Well, what about, could you get arrested?
Hmm.
Maybe, maybe not. Just depends.
Right.
But what about your job?
Mm.
What about, losing members of the family because they decide they don't want to speak to you anymore because of the things that you're saying?
Right.
You don't get to blame anybody else for your own actions.
Yeah, I think that's a major thing in life is that people do something to other people and other people react, and then the first person gets upset at the reaction. You had to expect a reaction. You might not have expected this reaction, but you had to expect a reaction, right? You
Yeah,
just you just minimized the cost of that by thinking you could just apologize to me and it would all be over. And it is when you apologize, but that doesn't mean I'm forgetting, you know?
right, exactly. And also too, those consequences are long lasting and far reaching,
Mhm. Yeah.
You- People, just because you can say what you want, that doesn't mean you're going to get to keep your job at the end of the day.
Yeah, right. And that doesn't
It,
mean somebody's not going to fuck with you. I had a guy
mhm.
tell me, he said, "You fucked with me." And so for the next year, I decided I would fuck with you 1% until I was satisfied we're even. And I was like, oh, you just taught me a great lesson. I love that. I don't have to fuck with people in proportion. I can put it out like financing,
Hmm.
revenge. And I can just get you in a smiling way for years to come. You know what I mean?
And that's just it. Is like for me, it's what is worth it? What is absolutely worth it for me to say or do, and what isn't?
Yeah.
Consequences are. It's like I fully expect to be able to say whatever it is I want. I also fully expect that Debbie will smack the absolute ever loving shit out of me if I say something stupid.
It's fixing your own life. Fix what's in front of you. If some dumbass says something dumb in front of me, that's what's in front of me. That's what I'm going to
Hmm.
fix.
But at the same time, too, it's like we also have to be open on the other side of things that sometimes people say some ignorant things, and you have to
Of
be willing to
course.
sit down and say, okay, hold up, time out. What
Hmm.
you've just said is not okay. So let's give
Right.
you the chance. Let's give you the chance to learn something here, and maybe choose a different path. And if they're like, nah, fuck it, I'm going to double down on this, then you're like, all right, consequences it is.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with that. Because
So,
everybody, I always, when I was married, I would come up and I would say just like caveman stuff, "Ooga booga booga booga," and my wife would be
mhm.
like, "What do you mean?" And I'd be like, "I have an issue with blah, blah," and she'd be like, "Say it again," and I'd be like, "I just didn't want to be there that long," and she'd be like, "All right, I understand. I didn't want to be there as long either. We got stuck," and I'd be like, "Thank you," but at
Mhm.
first, people don't always say it the right way. You know what I
Oh
mean?
God, no. I can absolutely be terrible about saying things, the way that I mean to. My
Mm,
intentions oftentimes my intentions are good. The way that I open my mouth sucks.
yes, me too, for
God, and that's
sure.
the worst part is like when you're like you think you've said something right, and then you just get this horrified or angry or sad reaction, and you're like, that was not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
That was not what I was thinking I was going to see happen. Finding out, it's like, okay, wow, we were on totally different pages here.
Hmm.
Communicate, let's get this cleared up. But if I was told that, hey, what you did said just wasn't cool, and here's why, I'm gonna sit down and go, oh shit, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
That was not what I meant to have happen at all.
Yeah.
And have the chance to actually correct my actions. Whereas if I was just like, nah, fuck it, I'm going with it again. Let's do this again. That's on me. What happens next is on me.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times people miss it because I say it so fast, but I always say start with I'm so sorry. I'm gonna put thought into how to fix that. And then I'll go
Mhm.
on. And then I'll just go on being me, but I'll at least acknowledge that something happened, that I did something, and that I'm thinking about how to not do that again if it offended you. And at some
Right.
point I'm gonna ask you for more information. But usually, when I come up with the solution I think is worthy, then I'll come and have a conversation with you. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's, actions, consequences, freedom of speech, it's all relative.
Yeah.
It's all relative. The question is, does the person have enough wherewithal to sit down and go, ooh,
Mm.
I probably shouldn't have said that. Or better question, do you need to say anything? You know,
Right.
Oftentimes we've gotten to that point of it's like we're so used to seeing people get that sound bite in to own the whoever
Right.
that people are starting to emulate that in their own way, on their own ways of communicating. It's like,
Hmm.
really, is that all this is we're trying to figure out who we're going to own next? Because
Right.
man, I don't have time for that shit.
That was the
It's like,
question I was addressing last week when I said passive aggressive people. I wanted to talk about that topic because it feels like there is people in normal conversations trying to own me.
uh, I don't have the time to own anybody. Fuck, I'm barely got my own shit figured out here. So
Right. But what I figured out was I just walk away. I
hmm,
just I just walk away. I don't even give an explanation for it. I don't say nope. I'm just like if that's who you're going to be right now, then that's not who I'm going to accept and I just go on with my life and do other things until that person, it starts acting differently. I just
right.
realized I'm not going to accept being bullied or picked on or made to feel bad about myself. And then I realized something. Inferior people look for opportunities to be superior when superior people are happy. to appear
Hmm.
inferior, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just really unfortunate that, rather than try and build people up, it's that whole we need to tear somebody down in order to feel better about ourselves.
Right. It's leveling the playing field one way or another. Either you lift somebody up or you drag somebody down, you know?
Hmm. And at this point, it's like it's time to stop dragging people down. Like it really is.
I
Like,
agree.
like there is nothing wrong with walking away and just being like, you know what, fuck it.
I think that's the best thing to do. And
Hmm.
somebody might be insulted in a minute, but I'll tell you, in my history, it's been what I've said last to people that's echoed in my head. And
Hmm.
if I said something real stupid to Jeffrey and he just walked away, I'm left with that. Like, what happened with Jeffrey? What was the last thing I said? And that's how you get people to work it out. Why did Jason walk away after I said that? Oh, because I insulted him, and then I went ahead and insulted him again. And if you do it 3 times, then I'm out. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'll be polite and I'll be passive, and I might try and joke with you back. But the issue I have is with people that can't take it as much as they can give it, and
Oh yeah.
that's where the passive aggressive comes in. I'm gonna make a joke, and if you take it as a joke, I'm gonna take it seriously. But if you take it seriously, I'm gonna say it was a joke, and I don't like that. I don't react. I don't do well with people that split the difference like that. And I
Hmm.
learned that's a lot what sarcasm is. It's splitting the difference, saying, I don't really care, but I care a lot at the
Hmm.
same time. And I have a real hard time communicating with these people because they do that to me. If I say a joke, they take it seriously. And I'm like, what? It was a joke, you know? And then suddenly I'm playing their game. And I just walk away from it all. I don't have time for that.
Right. Oh,
Mm, mm.
yeah.
So in the end, do you think it was okay that what was with the one Supreme Court judge, Clarence Thomas, that said no, this cheerleader should be penalized? Like eight Supreme Court justices said no, freedom of speech, but one said no.
It I don't. I wish I had a good answer for you on that one. I really
Yeah.
don't. It's to me, it's that whole actions versus consequences. You can say
Mhm.
fuck cheer, but does that mean that you're not going to be punished in some way? Like that's
I don't know. The whole Snapchat thing is that if anybody captured it or tried to save it, you would know about it. So
hmm.
if like she knows exactly the person that captured the information, you know?
Well, and that's just it. Is it's that she probably knew exactly who captured it, but the reality is that does saying something like that mean that they should face that kind of punishment? And that's what the other eight said is that actions have consequences, but the punishment didn't fit the crime.
Right. They weren't the people to punish her.
They weren't the people to punish her, and realistically, the punishment itself, it didn't create like a damage,
Right.
that would have said, hey, this person shouldn't be on a cheerleading squad.
Right. And
You
for the
know,
record, Snapchat deletes its stuff after 24 hours or whatever time you set, sometimes 15 seconds, sometimes sooner. Once you read a message and then back out, it disappears. So, I mean, it has a lot of anonymity to it, but it also lets you know if anybody screenshots anything or
yep.
tries to save anything. That's why I like the app. That's why people should get Snapchat. Go get Snapchat today. And that's why I like it over Facebook as well. It's independent. It's not owned by Twitter or Facebook, so I
Hmm.
kind of like its independence. And I'm always about independence and the freedom to speak. And Snapchat does that for me.
For me, like Snapchat was like a nice. Snapchat was a neat little in between technology for
Yeah.
when you couldn't send video on
Hmm.
Facebook Messenger
Right.
or over like text, but you wanted it was like that. It just fit really well with the Vine era of quick, short video communications.
Yeah.
So for me, like I rarely use Snapchat. Like it's just one of those things where it's like I have it, but I rarely use it. And really, there's only like three people that actually use it, and it's my mom and my sisters.
Right, I got
and
you.
and all I do is I get videos of my niece, which all
Right.
right, cool, whatever.
My friend
But
Lexi said, "Do you mind if I call you?" And I was like, "Sure." And she called me on Snapchat. And I was like, "I didn't know you meant on Snapchat." And she's like, yeah, I never used it before." And I was like, "I never used it before. I didn't know you could call people on Snapchat."
yep,
You you can video chat with people. There's a map where you can see where all your friends are. You can see events going on around the world, and it's
yep,
just I'm just still learning how to use it. You know what I mean? I figured if I
oh
was
yeah,
going to get stock in it, I was going to figure out how to use it. So if I see a Snapchat name, I generally add them. You know what I mean? I have
hmm
a lot of new friends in Pensacola.
hey, there you go. I don't know. The after this last political cycle, like,
Hmm,
and with the pandemic, I've gotten really worn out on social media.
yeah.
Like, I, checking it and seeing if anything's going on. It's like I'd rather just talk to people I know, because then, or send them memes directly, just because
Mm-hmm.
it gets so fucking lost in everything, and it's just not, it's just not as fun as it once was. Like,
It isn't.
it's not what I enjoyed about the platforms back in the day.
Yeah, it's like you saw that half of our country had liver spots when they took their clothes off, and you just don't want to see that again. They're great people. You just don't really want to see that about them again, you know?
In, and the shit that people are willing to believe,
Yeah.
because it either comes from one political party or another, it just absolutely infuriates me.
Hmm.
Like, I just, maybe this is called becoming cynical asshole, but I just, I just really wish that, what Facebook was would have stayed what it was, as a
Hmm.
goofy way to, send pictures to friends, and write stupid shit and just have some fun with it, not
Yeah.
become this all out fucking war over, red versus blue.
Hmm. Which
But
isn't our war. It's not our
mm,
war. It's just a group of people playing a video game with real lives. It's,
yep,
Democrats and Republicans just guessing at what might work and what might not work, and we suffer the consequences.
yep. And it's been real frustrating. It's been
Hmm.
real frustrating.
Yeah, it's like watching two gods like Zeus and Aphrodite fighting for eternity above your head and just dropping shit on you. Oh, yeah, people die. Yeah, like almost 600,000 people died of COVID. Are we interested in how that happened or why that happened? Is there any critical thought on this stuff? Like, is your average American just happy that COVID is almost done? Or are they living in COVID because they refuse to mask and they're getting the variants because still 200 people a day are dying of COVID because
Mhm.
people don't trust the vaccine? It's just a weird time to be alive and to be American, you know?
It's, it's a weird time to be a person of science, to be perfectly honest. It's like,
Right?
because I've got one side who, won't trust anything that I say, and I got another side who will only trust it if it fits the narrative. And it's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? You know, it's it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, uh that's not how any of this works, but okay.
Yeah, one of the lessons I had to learn was to not judge people and not judge things. And that started with not trying to get into people's conversations or eavesdrop or listen in or come up with advice while people were talking. I just learned that somebody else's life is more like a movie to watch that
Mhm.
I could interact with once in a while, as opposed to like something that I had to put on strings like a puppeteer, you know?
Mhm.
And that a lot of people want you to live life the way they would live their life, even though
Mhm.
you're not anything like them. And it's real hard to get out of the I would have space and just been like hey, I'm here if you need space.
Right.
We're just so ready to judge people for everything, and so we're quizzing people that way, like, hey, what's your sexuality? I'm thinking to myself, people shouldn't know what my sexuality is. It's none of their business. There's
Mm.
about 58 people that know what my sexuality is, but You're gonna have to meet me more intimately to find that out. You shouldn't
Right.
know what my political affiliation is. You should watch my actions and how I change the world. That's what should matter to you. But
Well,
yet
yeah.
we're judged for all that. Oh, Jeffrey has a beer. Oh, beard. So he must be a certain
Jeffrey
kind
has
of
a beer. Man, I mean, it's 10:30 and it's already 90 degrees outside. I wouldn't mind having a nice cold beer right now.
what kind?
Well, right now. I gotta go with my Montucky Cold Snacks out of Bozeman, Montana.
Hmm,
It's a nice light American lager. It's got a great taste to it.
I
It's
love it.
super smooth and I enjoy it. When I'm not drinking my German beers for the taste, that's like the perfect like ice cold beer with a barbecue. It's not a Budweiser or a Bud Light or a Coors or a Miller or anything like that.
Right.
It tastes great. It's nice. It has a great. It's so crisp. I like it so much. It's smooth. I mean, if you're expecting world class beer, no, none of the American lagers are. But if you're looking for a great beer, and they're one of those beers that they donate back to charity, like 8.5%, I think is what it is.
So what's up with the organic beers now? I saw Michelob had an organic, only three ingredients.
So organic beers. Oh, this is a fun one. Where do you want to start? Let's see. Organic beer. Well, so let's start with this. German beer. So German beer making has what they call the German purity laws. You can
Hmm.
only have three ingredients,
Okay.
and the idea is that you have to process it. You have to make it in such a way that it's self-containing, self-sealed, and you don't have any of these other add-ons. So,
Okay.
like for example, um, my sister's brewery, like they get really close to the German purity laws, but the difference is that they add carbonation into their beers,
I saw the
and you can't
nitrogen
do that.
beers. I love
You
the
can't you
nitrogen
can't
beers, by
do
the way.
that for German purity laws. Like it has to be self-carbonating.
Wow. Okay.
So literally, barley, hops, water. Like that's
Yep.
it.
That's it.
That's all you can do. How you cure it to get its taste is entirely on you. But it cannot have anything more than those three ingredients.
Right.
So why? Why are people doing that? Well, I mean, you could say that it's part of the health food craze, that
Mm-hmm.
everybody's, being more conscious about what they're putting into their bodies.
Right.
Some might say that they're trying to capitalize on a market that just really isn't present in the United States. We get our German beers from Germany, to have those German purity laws. So the idea that maybe there's going to be some local brewers who embrace that, pretty neat to me. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Is it
But
better?
is it better?
Organic beer over processed?
Well, I can't say that I've had an organic Michelob. I've had a
Well,
regular Michelob.
but you've had German beer, and German beer, by American definition, it would be organic.
German beer by, well, not necessarily. It does. So those three things, it doesn't say whether or not what you've had is genetically engineered or genetically modified.
Does that
So it
matter
may or
when it
may not.
comes to organic?
Yes.
Or is that the definition of organic? Isn't just a vegetable a vegetable? Somebody asked me, like, what's your favorite vegetable? And I was like, I like all sorts of plants, but they're all
So
plants.
organics doesn't necessarily have like the best standard, the most clear standard.
Right.
Organics, literally organics is usually nothing genetically modified or genetically engineered and limited chemical spray.
Okay.
So you usually have to have a combination of the two in order for it to be considered organic. And even then, it's not that you can't spray it at all. It just has to fall under a certain threshold, and so it just depends on who's doing what and what they call organic. So organic doesn't isn't necessarily like the greatest standard in the world.
Okay. Maybe it's
But in
closer
terms
to paleo then? Like more like paleo, three simple ingredients?
maybe, but honestly, I wouldn't even say that.
Mm,
I would honestly just say that, the simplicity makes it delicious. The lack of, the lack of chemicals, additional preservatives makes it
okay.
delicious. Um, honestly, it just, you know, one of the beers that I like to drink, Weinsteppener. They are the world's oldest brewery, operating since the year 1040.
Wow.
So in 19 years, they will have 1,000 years of beer making.
Wow. Which is safer
That's,
than water for a majority of that time.
I mean, I'd rather drink beer, but
Yeah, definitely. So what about going the other way? Have you ever had Riverside Brewery's old fashioned beer?
nope, I have
No.
not.
Mm. I've been trying to. I didn't even know what an old fashioned was till I had a rich man put a $400 ice cube in my drink. He's like, "Yeah, that ice cube it costs more than the shot." I was like, "Wow!" But I love old fashions. You know what I mean? They're
Right.
pretty good when they're made right. They're pretty good. I can't imagine a beer that tastes like that.
The only like positive and negative experiences like really great to talk about is Bud Light Lime when it is fucking nuclear hot is the most disgusting thing I've ever had.
Oh, really?
Oh Jesus Christ, that is terrible shit.
Mm.
I mean, it's not good cold, let alone when it's fucking hot. It is. Blech.
Ah, I was a
Um,
Budweiser kid in my 20s.
let's see. Um, but like the first time I got to have like a real Oktoberfest beer, oh my god,
Sure.
it was so good
Mm.
because you're supposed to pair them with like sharp cheeses and sausage, and
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
my god, does it go well? Does it? It's so good.
Mm. Like I used to drink Bass beer, and what it was best with was like gumbo. Gumbo and Bass beer is just the pairing is just amazing.
Yeah, for me, it's like I've always wanted to find like that good beer that went with just whatever I'm pulling off the grill in the back. And Montucky has been like my favorite go-to
Okay.
to just drink with to drink with grilled dinner. It's absolutely delicious.
I love that.
Um, but like if I go have German food, oh man, dark beers with meats, darker sauces. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I get Weinsteppener's Hefedunkel when I get my Jaeger Schnitzel, and it is so good, so good.
There he is speaking Greek again, German again.
Jamin,
So I
the
was
Jamin.
watching something. We're not going to stay on it very long. I just thought it was interesting that I was watching like the rise of the Third Reich and how it began. And it started with the eugenics in America, which was the elimination of like disabled people and, seeing people as inferior or superior. And then that was taken over by the Germans who started eliminating their disabled people. And because I have this thought like and I don't want to be mean, but like what happened to the black people that weren't suited to be slaves? Like that weren't taken as slaves, like the disabled, the elderly. What happened to them? Were they just killed or did the white
In
people just
in
leave them?
in Germany or
Oh, sorry,
uh,
I covered a lot there.
yeah,
Specific.
or when slaver ships were running.
Yeah, yeah, all of it. You know what I mean? Like
I honestly like I honestly don't know.
just seems
So
weird that disabled people are like the start for so many giant movements of death.
it's hard. Like I honestly don't know, and I honestly don't know what's documented out there. That could be a
Yeah.
really interesting question to have answered.
It was a like a thing about Penhurst Hospital. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the episodes of American Horror Story. So if you want to learn about that, that's where disabled people were just treated so horribly. And I only
Hmm.
bring it up for the intersectionality, you know, and that's about it. We're all treated like crap. We need to work together. So,
Hmm.
okay, I'm going to ask you a question because I did not get an answer and I'm kind of upset about it. What I did was I watched Pitch Black, then I watched The Chronicles of Riddick, and then
Hmm.
I'm going to watch Riddick. And then I looked it up on Wikipedia to see the order that I was supposed to watch them in, and I saw that there's a Riddick 4 coming out, which is awesome. And that made me think, is he a superhero or is he just an angry guy. Like, which one is Riddick? I know they call him an anti-hero, but is he a
Hmm.
superhero because he's Furion, or is he just an asshole?
Well, yeah, they never really answer that one.
Yeah,
Um, I would say that it's. I think it's part asshole, part superhero. In that, Riddick is Riddick because he got that shine job on his eyes,
right,
but at the same time, he does have a lot of his strength was legendary beforehand. It just
right,
so basically he got an enhancement that made him even stronger.
right. But it's learning how to kill people from birth, right? It's a trade craft. It's not a skill. It's not a supernatural skill.
No, it's not a supernatural skill.
Okay. Although
Um,
is the supernatural skill would be the inability to bend or be flexible, like
mhm.
as a Furion, he just gets angry and takes it out on everybody, and that's his superhero trait, maybe.
Super rage.
Super white rage. No,
Oh
sorry,
God,
not from Ben Diesel. You're not gonna get it. But white rage, we kind of skated right over that, didn't we? Are
that's
you
that's a
are
that's a
people
huge.
entitled to have self rage, and are they self-diagnosing themselves with self rage, or is it an insult that we're throwing as woke people on people that we don't like?
I think it's an insult more than anything.
Yeah,
Um, but it's unfortunately it's a stereotypical insult that's not wrong. We'll go with that.
right. If you've ever seen a Karen or witnessed a Karen, then you would understand what white rage is.
And that's just it. Is that it boils down to people being unable and unwilling to understand the world around them
Right.
and the fact that things are different. So I don't know. That's a huge
I
that's
know.
such a deep topic to go into that it's going
Yeah.
to be hard to even start to touch that one.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to look up more about white rage.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that one's probably going to be a good idea to look up because that one's going to be a rough one.
oh, yeah, maybe. It's like incel, right?
Yep. There's so much that you can go into on that. It just depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. Hold
Right.
on a second.
Yep. And you're listening to Public Access America. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Player FM, TuneIn Radio, the Stitcher Smart Radio app, Red Circle, and more. You can find our social media on Instagram at Public Access America, YouTube at Public Access America Podcast, Twitter at Public Access Pod, and we are back with Jeffrey. That is an insertion point. How are you doing?
Oh, it's doing all right.
Yeah.
Debbie's about to go do some exploring and having some fun for today
Oh,
while trying to stay cool. So
she, they're always cool. Debbie is always cool.
of course Billy is right now trying to make the case for mom not to leave by laying
Right.
down all sprawled out belly up.
Mm, pet me first.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
no, you can't go. See, I'm too
it is
cute for you to
true.
leave. I
Sometimes
will
you gotta
say,
let your dogs lead your destiny.
oh yeah, and Billy's been one of those just absolutely fantastic dogs to have
Yeah,
during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic. She's an absolutely fantastic creature, and she's a bit of a butthole at times, but so am I. So
right. Interesting. I've not settled on a pet. My roommate has two cats, and I find them all over the place. So I have pets. But when we were gonna move in, the last owner was like, "Did you want me to leave the dog?" And I was like, "What? You- You're gonna leave us your dog? I don't want your dog. I don't want the
what? Wait,
responsibility."
wait. What dog owner goes, "Hey, I'm moving. Do you want my dog?" What the
Exactly.
fuck?
The story they told us was that their kids were playing and this dog just wandered into the yard and started protecting them. Like, and they just never did anything about the dog. They just let the dog live there. And they were like, should we keep letting the dog live here?"
Like
It's like,
what?
no, no, I don't want your dog, but it's an awesome dog. I mean, because I spent the whole day playing with the dog while my friend looked at the house. So
Right.
I'm here for the
That's a
dogs, not the
that's a that's
people.
a that's a weird one though.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, animals choose you. Billy chose us, and
Yeah.
it's been nice to have, because during good times and during rough times, she's an absolute sweetheart. And she, like,
Yeah.
she really is. Some animals are just really super in tune with your emotions, and Billy
Hmm.
is one of them. So,
Yeah.
like, if I'm having a rough day, she's full of snuggles and cuddles. If I'm having a good day, it's let's play and have some fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes, she's two she's gonna be 2 here in a few months, and so she's still puppyish and kind of a
Yeah.
butthole at times. And
They're always wishing for the optimistic ideal world, aren't they, dogs?
hmm
Like, I feel that cats wander between dimensions, and only when you pet them do they come back to this one. And I think they're perpetually confused by life because they're just seeing things in like four dimensions when we're not, you know?
oh, like our cats are like, they pretty much fuck off with themselves all day
Hmm.
long, and then they'll just be like, yes, hi, I'm here for my mandatory feeding and what I will allow you to touch of my fur. Whereas,
Right.
Billy's like, friend, 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 hi, friend, I'm gonna beat all over you, friend. You're the best friend in the world, friend.
Yep. Yep.
You know, nice thing about a dog, when you treat them right, they're always happy to see you.
Yes. And the great
Always
thing
happy to
about
see you.
dogs that people don't realize is that even an abused dog over time can recover.
Yep. And whereas this one cat we have that we adopted, she's been like 3/4 feral the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, and that hasn't changed much. So she won't really come. She'll come near people a little bit, but like
Hmm.
there's only been a couple of us that ever actually get to hold her.
Yeah.
So, and even then,
Yeah.
it's like I'm not picking her up to hold her. Like she's like, I will sit on you and you can pet me, but if you move, I'm gonna use 4-wheel drive and run away.
We have a cat like that here. He's like, pet me, pet me, pet me, stop. And he'll just dig all four of his like claws into you, you know, and just bite you until you stop, and then he'll let go.
Yeah. Whereas Billy is just like kiss, 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 kiss. Are you done? Kiss,
Yes.
kiss, 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 kiss.
That's why I'm a
And
dog person.
yep, and she likes to. I mean, her biggest problem is that she likes to jump, and she's a 100-pound dog, so it's like, you know,
Mm.
she'll knock a person over. But like, we had a friend over for Memorial Day, and she brought her 2 kids over that were like 5 and 7 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and those kids ran around with Billy all day long. The kids would follow her around, she'd follow the kids around.
Yeah.
It was, lots of kisses, lots of playing with each other. And, just, Billy was always just kind of watching over the kids. So
Mm.
it was fantastic.
I
You
love
know,
that.
she's a real sweet coral.
Yeah, I
So,
love that. Well,
you
thanks
know,
for being here, Jeffrey.
absolutely,
This
kind of
seemed like a wandering, weird episode, right?
but wandering and weird is all right because we just kind of get to go wherever we want.
It's true. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if that was a great episode, but then in editing, when I have to make the list of topics and I'm like, every 2 minutes, new topic, I'm like, all right, that wasn't so bad.
And I mean, really though, it's like sometimes it's nice to not have to be like, okay, let's respond to the latest, most fucked up thing that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, somebody said when you respond to it, you elevate it. So if you're going to elevate something, elevate worthy things, you know?
hmm
And I
You
just
know,
don't feel like a lot of the Republican stuff is realistic. And I think a lot of it is Democrats saying, please complain about this. And there's checks for it all. Like that filibuster thing. Somebody
hmm
even said it. Elizabeth Warren said there's a cutout exemption. We just need to work on that. I was like, yeah, the same thing Jeffrey and I were saying 4 weeks ago. So
hmm
everything's going to get ironed out and worked out. It's just they're going to keep us frazzled and frenzied so they can get the donations. Don't
yep,
feed the bear. Don't donate to politicians.
yep, and like I said with the filibuster, I mean, like I understand why people want to keep it. I
Hmm.
understand why people want to get rid of it. It's just that if you want to get rid of it only because your party's in power, but
Right.
you were willing to use it when you weren't in power
Yeah.
and you didn't have a problem with it then, like your problem is not with the filibuster. It's the problem that you don't get to just run roughshod over everything.
Right. But Democrats
And
did
then
it.
you can't be surprised when the Democrats lose control of everything, the Republicans have control of everything, and all they
And
got
they
to do
do
is
it.
have a simple majority, and they just get to do whatever they want. You don't get to be surprised by that. And
That's right.
that's just it, because like people are going to complain about it. It's like, look, should hey, no chewing on that, you jerk. Dog,
Mhm.
there's the dog being a butthole.
Yep.
um
Yep.
but I mean, that's just the reality, is that as much as I wish that there would be more cooperation in government, that's
Mm.
not where we're at right now, and that's not where we're going to be at for a very long time, unfortunately. And so the expectation has to be that if you get rid of the filibuster, great, we're going to be able to pass, the Democrats are going to be able to pass a whole bunch of things that they want to do.
Hmm.
But don't be surprised when the Republicans end up gaining power again, and
Yeah.
they do the same thing.
Well, I mean, Boehner used it to get Obama cabinet picks. Um, Mitch McConnell used it to get Trump's judges in. I think using an exemption for voting rights just makes sense. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to get rid of the filibuster. I also think the standing filibuster is important towards the end of debate. If the minority realizes that they're losing and being trampled on and not being heard, I understand speaking up and using it, but our Senate was built to discuss and debate. And if you're going to preempt debate with it, that I don't think that's right. I think that's just eliminating the Senate altogether, which is what Mitch McConnell wants to prove is that government is big and bulky and it's a waste of time. And he's doing that by being the red tape that we claim to hate. And
Yep.
so every day, every morning, I wake up and I insult Mitch McConnell for not being able to do his job, not being smart enough to know how to debate, not how to write a policy, not how to do anything other than obstruct because it's his
Mm-hmm.
one trick. If he had anything else to do, he would do it. If he thought he could create a better policy than Democrats, he would do it, but he's just not smart enough to know how to do it. And I really think the Republicans need to start with new leadership on both sides all the way down. I think it, you know what I mean?
Well, what it boils down to is like the Democrats got pissed because Joe Biden, who is an adherent to the Senate,
Hmm.
has gone about doing things in a bipartisan way.
I love it.
And they're pissed, and the Democrats are pissed that he's taking way too long, and just let's just get it done already. Let's just do it ourselves. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. You want to sit there and talk about bipartisan stuff, but then this is how you're going to react. Well, guess what? You ain't gonna get
Right.
any bipartisan work later
Joe,
on bigger things.
it cracks me up. Joe Biden's in the driveway saying, "We came to a consensus decision," and Bernie Sanders is like, "Whatever, I'm over here doodling a $6 trillion reconciliation. So do whatever you want."
Hmm.
It's like bipartisanship, but we're still gonna do it. And I think that's the way it is. I mean, treat the Republicans the way they treated you, but at some point we need common sense. I mean, let's debate things. And if you
Hmm.
don't agree with it, then go ahead and filibuster for as long as you can to prove your point.
Yep, absolutely. Put yourself on the record on why you think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, but leave us out of it. We're gonna go drink our German beers and eat our fucking bratwurst, right? Mm,
Oh yeah, I've got some burgers to grill.
mm,
Question is do I even want to bother going outside? I got up early this morning. Well, because the dog was being a butthole, but
mm,
I also needed to redo my lights on the back of my car.
mm.
And at 7 o'clock in the morning, it was fucking miserable already for Washington. That
Right.
was pretty impressive. It was like, so of course I'm messing around with one set of lights only to figure out that they're not going to work, but I was able to get all the others done.
Okay.
So that's that is what it is.
That's an accomplishing of a goal. That's somewhat, right?
Right. So you know, had to order another set of lights because LEDs and electricity. You
Hmm.
know, the systems are made to detect when things aren't working, and so when things are at a different voltage, it just assumes it's not working. So I ended up getting the hyper flash for my blinkers, and it's like, ah, fuck, I need a load resistor on these lights.
That makes sense.
So cars, they're not as easy to work on as they once were.
No, and that's why we build computers. I love
Yep,
you, Jeffrey. I'll let you get back to
love you
what you
too.
do. Go enjoy your garden. You have a garden, right?
I did not get a chance to do any gardening this year because things just were just crazy.
Fuck the pandemic. Fuck the world. If we don't have a chance to garden, who are we?
My hope is that once my department has some more people in it, I'm not going to be so busy and so exhausted all the time.
Well, let's work
So
on that. I'll
we're
stick.
we're we're getting there.
I'll talk to you